New Netflix docuseries about Sean Diddy Combs is making headlines for its never-before-seen footage of the music mogul in the days before his arrest. Now, Combs is threatening legal action against the streamer for airing the unauthorized footage. Behind the series is Combs' longtime rap rival 50 Cent and director Alexandria Stapleton, who sat down with NBC News' Chloe Malas ahead of tonight's release.
This just cracked the internet wide open. Gene Deal is back in the spotlight, and this time he's claiming there were major details quietly left out of 50 Cent's Netflix documentary. Details that shake up everything people think they know. According to Gene, he's now speaking publicly about alleged evidence tied to the Tupac Shakur shooting, including paperwork he says never made the final cut, and a deeper backstory around Biggie's death that raised red flags behind the scenes. You didn't click this by accident? People are saying Gene Deal is exposing moments that 50 Cent chose not to include. And whether you believe it or not, the claims are already sending shockwaves through hip-hop history talk. So let's get straight into it. No fluff, no delays, just the full breakdown of what's being alleged right now. Here's where it gets interesting. 50 Cent reportedly sold his documentary centered on Sean Diddy Combs to Netflix for serious money, and expectations were sky high across the culture. Many assumed Gene Deal would play a key role, since he previously worked closely with Diddy and has spent years sharing his version of events tied to Bad Boy's past. But when the documentary dropped, Gene Deal was missing completely. No interviews, no archive clips, no commentary, nothing at all, and people noticed immediately. Now Gene is explaining why. He says certain footage, conversations, and documents were allegedly removed before release, material he believes was too sensitive for the final edit. And once you hear his side, it becomes clear why producers may have decided to leave it on the cutting room floor. In this video, you'll hear why Gene says he stepped away. He talks about a moment he claims showed prior awareness of danger toward Tupac Shakur, mentions a check he says raised serious questions, and revisits the events surrounding the notorious B.I.G.'s death, including warnings he says were ignored at the time.
I want to put her on blast because she was telling me, she was saying to me that what I was asking for was crazy and they wasn't spending money like that. I'm talking about you got footage, you got clothing, I was doing footage, I had pictures, all the stuff that I had, you could figure out a way to pay them, brother, and stuff like that. And then I was telling her about some prices that I've already received and I had the invoices to show it. And then she was calling me like I was lying. I'm like, yo, who do you think you talking to? You know what I'm saying? And she was talking about, there's no way nobody paid. Nobody what? I say, first of all you people come with these documentaries and stuff, the first thing you tell me, y'all tell these people out here that y'all don't pay, and y'all pay. If you can make a picture look like $10,000, $15,000, you know what I'm saying? You can sit here and tell me that you're gonna pay me for my time sitting right down here with y'all. You understand? So then, one thing led to another, and I was like, all right, well then, F you, I spoke to 50, and then she said 50, and this is exact words that came out her mouth. 50 does not determine what goes in and goes out of this document.
This part flips the whole story on its head, so pay close attention. Before we even touch Gene Deal's leaked material, there's something way bigger people missed. This project was allegedly planned as a long, deep series over 10 episodes, but instead, 50 Cent suddenly dropped a 4-part Netflix series titled Diddy, The Reckoning, packed with footage filmed just days before Sean Diddy Combs faced serious legal trouble. We're talking raw behind-the-scenes moments, private lawyer conversations, casual fan interactions in Harlem, and off-camera clips most people never expected to see. On the surface, it looks solid, even polished, but Gene Deal says the real story was never told. The expectation was simple. This documentary was supposed to dig into everything, every allegation, every questionable move, every cover story. But according to Gene, the most critical details were quietly left out, and that's where things start getting uncomfortable. So who is Gene Deal, really? He wasn't just around, he was right there.
Jake. Wolf was not the gunman who killed Jake, and Mark Curry knows that to be true. You understand? And East Coast War was more like Helena of Troy. When Puff got mad at Suge for being out there and allowing Misa to come out there to make money, however she was doing it, to feed her family, he vowed down that it's like, yo, I ain't never fucking with her again, and I ain't never fucking with him again. Puff and Suge had a conversation behind the House of Blues about was we all right, and Tupac was alive. Tupac wasn't dead. So So if it was a war, Suge ain't having no conversation with Puff about we good. I know he could be doing a Hoboken hustle, trying to fool a brother, but had he killed my man or some shit like that, I wouldn't have no conversation with Puff. I'd been like, yo, you know what y'all niggas done? You know what happened? And it wasn't no conversation like that, brother. It wasn't no conversation whereas that, Suge made Puff feel like I'm gonna get you a payback for what happened to Jake. This was more so that Puff, Suge, for whatever reason he was mad at Puff, and Puff, for whatever reason he was mad at Suge, it was between them two. It wasn't no whole East Coast wanted the West Coast dead, and the West Coast wanted East Coast to dead, because they still was going out, still chilling, still at places with each other. It was Bad Boy, and it was Death Row. It wasn't no East Coast and no West Coast. West Coast dudes were still coming out on the East Coast getting love. East Coast niggas was still going out on the West Coast getting love. It was Bad Boy versus Death Row. And that's what it was, bro. And it was because of the two CEOs. But Suge tried to straighten it out. I gotta get at the Suge. The Death Row East Coast was going to bring in Eric B. It was going to bring in Big D. And those brothers was from the East Coast. So now they was looking for a representative to come to the meeting from Bad Boy so they could straighten out the shit between Pac and Big and Death Row and Bad Boy. And Puff is the one who refused. Puff is the one to refuse to send a representative or either come himself, and got mad at Zip and them because they were in the Mirage on 57th Street partying with Suge Knight. Got mad at them, and Zip hung up the phone on behind that.
But what you mean by Mark Curry? He know who killed Big J?
It was some Jamaican dude from the Bronx. He's dead now. The police ended up killing him at Magic City. I don't know his name. But Mark Curry know that it wasn't Wolf.
But when I was looking at the documentary, Kirk Burroughs, he did confirm that Big, he didn't want to go to LA. And they was actually getting warnings not to go to LA. But, Diddy, he wanted to go, man.
Oh, man. Yeah, we must have had warnings, man. I didn't know. I knew that we shouldn't be out.
Diddy's former bodyguard during the peak Bad Boy era, present during the East Coast-West Coast tension, in Las Vegas the night Tupac Shakur was shot, and in Los Angeles when Biggie was killed. Gene says he witnessed history unfold in real time, and now he's done holding back. Naturally, the biggest question keeps popping up. Why wasn't Gene Deal included in the documentary at all? Gene recently explained it in an interview. He says he was initially involved, sharing footage, stories, and insight, until one conversation changed everything. That conversation was with director Alex Stapleton, and according to Gene, she made it clear that 50 Cent didn't control payments or final content decisions. When Gene heard the financial offer, he felt completely brushed aside. From his perspective, he brought exclusive footage and first-hand access to major moments in hip-hop history, yet the compensation didn't reflect that value at all. So he walked away, no arguments, no drama, just a hard no. But here's the twist. Gene now says money wasn't the only reason he was excluded.
About the whole incident of the Quad Studio shit. Like in the documentary, they was talking about that, right? You know what I'm saying? They talked about the Quad Studio shit. But they didn't mention the fact, and they left it out, that Big and C's did not know that Puff and Andre Harrell was in Jimmy Henchman's office the day Pac got killed. The day Pac got shot at Quad Studio. Let me repeat that again so it don't get mixed up in the whole thing. They did not mention that Andre Harrell and Puff Daddy and Jimmy Henchman were all in the office together. Puff was on the office because he was trying to spy on Big them, because Big was writing the Junior Mafia stuff and Puff had his publishing. I told this to a couple of people before. I said it before, and you got people that's running with it like they knew the story in the whole 9 yards. You understand? They'll lie and you ask them, how do you know that? Who told you? They couldn't even tell you that. They'll tell you some lie, they did some kind of investigation, but it didn't happen like that. You understand? Puff was there to spy on Big because he had owned Big Publishing, and Big had turned around, and the same people who helped Puff get Big Publishing told Big to turn and put Tatiana or put somebody else's name on his publishing, or give it to Lil C's or whoever, this, that, and the third that he wrote for, so he can get the money from it. So that's how that went down. So they was there to spy on Big. In the interim of him being there to spy on Big, Jimmy Henchman told him that they finna show Pac, teach Pac a lesson, because Pac had owed him him some money. So that's why he was up in the studio and was coming to the studio. Pac owed him some money. Pac owed him some money. He was gonna work it off and get some money from doing a song with Lil Sean. And that's what that was about. But Pac was talking greasy to Jimmy Henchman, and Jimmy Henchman wasn't the type of dude that you talk greasy to, alleged, unless you're 50 Cent.
So Diddy knew what was gonna happen to Pac.
He knew Pac was about to deal well. Yeah, he was there to see it. He was there to see it. He wasn't only there to see Big them. When Jimmy Henchman told him that, he was there to see what's going to happen to Pac. He was there for that, because had he not been there for that, he would have went up there in the office. He would have went to the studio or the studio session with Big them. He would have went to that studio session with Big them. He knew what room Big them was in. He didn't do that. He was there to see what was going to happen to Pac after Jimmy told him, and that's factual.
He claims massive evidence was deliberately removed, including details tied to the East Coast-West Coast conflict. According to Gene, the documentary skipped key truths surrounding the death of bodyguard Jake Wolf, and he claims Mark Curry knows far more than what was shown. This is where the narrative really starts falling apart, and it gets uncomfortable fast. Gene Deal says people keep pushing this idea that everything was some deep, mysterious operation, but according to him, it wasn't that at all. He claims it was a street-level situation involving someone from the Bronx, and law enforcement later confirmed that individual was taken out of the picture during a separate incident at a venue called Magic City. Gene also challenges the whole East Coast versus West Coast storyline. He says that framing is flat out wrong and way too broad. According to him, this was never about regions, cities, or coastlines. It was strictly tension between Bad Boy Records and Death Row Records at the top level. Artists were still moving freely. East Coast rappers were welcomed out west. West Coast artists were still pulling up in New York, and the culture was solid overall. The real friction, Gene says, lived strictly between Diddy and Suge Knight, and that part keeps getting glossed over. And here's something the documentary completely skipped.
I think that hate stemmed from wanting to be him, idolize him off, he idolized Tupac, because you got to realize when a woman looked at Tupac, they probably wanted him. Puff wasn't getting that type of fever from girls. You understand what I'm saying? Puff had to use his money. Puff had to use his position in order to get women. Now, I seen him with some bad joints, and I used to look at them like this, like, not on no hating shit, but like, you wouldn't be here if he wasn't puffed.
Gene claims Death Row actually tried to calm things down. There were attempts to arrange a sit-down to clear the air between Tupac and Biggie. According to Gene, Diddy refused to attend and wouldn't send anyone from Bad Boy either. That detail, he says, never made the final cut, and it changes everything. From Gene's point of view, this situation could have been diffused early. Instead, he believes decisions were made that allowed the tension to spiral. And that's why this part makes people uneasy to even talk about. Now let's get into the most explosive claims, because this is where things really turn up. Gene Deal says there was advance awareness of what was about to go down at Quad Studios in 1994, and that certain people were closer than anyone wants to admit. The documentary mentions the Quad Studios incident, but Gene says the most critical detail was left out.
Me and my man Boom Dang, aka my man Slick, a check for $1 million. We don't know, and everybody trying to say, lie, talking about half of it got paid, 500. I don't know. I know when I asked him we asked him, do we ask? No, we didn't ask him. I know when he showed us the check and he walked away after he showed us the check for the $1 million, you understand? I asked Boom, I said, yo, Boom, when did he get a record label? He said, you know how Zip is. I said, when did he get a Zip record label? Zip had a check for $1 million. He said he got it from Barry Hankerson and Jimmy Henchman for his record label, Black Ground Records. So now, if that's true, we know Jimmy Henchman and Puff was cool. You should be able to trace $1 million if that's the truth. If that's the truth, you should be able to trace that.
He claims Diddy, Andre Harrell, and Jimmy Henchman were all together in Jimmy's office earlier that same day. Gene is clear on one thing: Biggie and his circle didn't know Diddy was there at all. Diddy was expected to be upstairs at the studio session, but instead, Gene claims he stayed back watching things quietly. Why? Gene says it was about business.
Gene is basically saying the evidence is sitting right there if anyone wants to follow it.
Maybe he can help law enforcement on how, if Diddy had anything to do with breaking that money up or giving that money up to him like that. Or did he use somebody else? Or did he do something for somebody else to be able to get that money for that? We don't know.
I was just about to say that too. Keefe D, he can use him for the upcoming trial.
Well, Kirk was articulate in always keeping notes and files and things like that. But that money can't, just do a trace on $1 million check. Just do a trace on I want them to do it, because that would prove that I saw $1 million check. That would prove, just do a trace on it. The man dead now, what you gonna do? Do a trace.
Diddy controlled Biggie's publishing, and Biggie was trying to restructure that deal. Advisors suggested placing publishing under another name so Biggie could secure his earnings directly. According to Gene, Diddy was monitoring that situation closely, and while he was in that office, Gene claims Jimmy Henchman hinted that Tupac was about to be confronted over a financial dispute. Gene says Tupac was supposed to show up to settle things professionally, but words had already been exchanged, and tensions were high. Gene insists that Diddy understood what was coming next. And here's the detail that keeps people talking. Gene says if Diddy didn't expect anything serious, he would have gone straight upstairs to Biggie. Instead, Gene claims Diddy stayed put, waiting to see how the situation unfolded. Gene stands on this completely. He says this isn't rumor talk. This is what he personally witnessed, and he believes the documentary avoided this part on purpose. This part hits different because Gene says the signs were there and nobody spoke up. According to him, certain people had advance awareness of what was about to unfold, yet no warnings were given and no effort was made to slow things down. The documentary skipped this entirely, but Gene also breaks down why the tension between Sean Diddy Combs and Tupac Shakur was so deep in the first place, and honestly, the explanation connects a lot of dots. Gene says it wasn't about music talent or chart success. He claims it was personal, rooted in envy over natural presence. According to Gene, when Tupac entered a room, attention followed without effort. People were drawn to him automatically. His energy spoke before he ever opened his mouth. Gene contrasts that with Diddy's situation. He claims Diddy relied heavily on status, money, and influence to get the same reaction. Gene recalls moments where he escorted women out afterward, thinking to himself that things would have looked very different without fame and wealth involved. He even says Diddy once admitted straight up saying, "I don't know how to talk to women," which stuck with him. Gene believes that frustration built over time. And according to him, that emotional rivalry quietly fueled many later decisions, whether people want to admit it or not. Now here's where Gene says, things move beyond opinions. He insists he personally saw something that changed how he viewed everything. He describes an incident on 112th Street where he was sitting outside with another person when a man named Eric Von Zip appeared, proudly showing off a brand new car. Then it happened. Zip reached into his back pocket and pulled out a check, not a small one either. Gene says it was for $1 million, and both he and his companion saw it clearly. Zip was openly bragging, treating it like proof of something bigger. According to Gene, Zip said the check came from Barry Hankerson and Jimmy Henchman tied to Blackground Records, and Gene points out the timing loudly.
Just seems strange. Could Puff have been involved in Tupac's murder or Biggie's murder?
I think that when you set up an atmosphere for something to happen, how involved are you? You set up the atmosphere. You put people in positions to get hurt. He knew that somebody was going to do something. He was told. I told him before we left. I told him. Mace told him. See, people ain't telling. See, everybody think that Gene Deal is the only one know this shit. I'm not the only one that's know this and privy to this information. I'm the only one that's speaking on it and has spoke on it. Now, people are coming out gradually, but when Puff set up an atmosphere for somebody to get hurt and they get hurt, don't you take some responsibility for that?
Is that more tactics? He's not going to pull the trigger. He might not even pay someone to do so, but like releasing that song Who Shot You, that creates an atmosphere, creating certain things and planting seeds in somebody else's mind to be number one, where Tupac ends up getting killed, Biggie ends up being killed.
This occurred shortly after Tupac passed away. Gene's argument is simple but powerful. He says if authorities ever wanted clarity, all they'd need to do is follow that check. This wasn't secret money moving quietly, it was a documented transaction that had to pass through a bank system. Gene stresses there's a paper trail. Signatures, records, approvals, all logged somewhere. He's basically saying the evidence isn't hidden at all. It's sitting in plain sight for anyone willing to look. And there's another name Gene says people keep overlooking, even though this person might know way more about the money trail than anyone else. That name is Kirk Burroughs, the former president of Bad Boy Records. According to Gene, Kirk was known for keeping extremely detailed notes, records, and files on everything happening behind the scenes. Gene mentions that Kirk once claimed he covered travel costs for people heading to Las Vegas around the same time Tupac's situation unfolded. Gene is clear, though. He says he doesn't personally remember that part. But if Kirk truly kept receipts and documentation, that could change everything fast. Gene's point is simple. Moving around that kind of money quietly is almost impossible if someone like Kirk is tracking expenses. If he documented who was paid, when, and why, Gene believes Kirk could be the missing puzzle piece that finally forces real questions to be asked. The real question is brutal. Will anyone ever look into it, or will these records stay locked away like they have for nearly 3 decades? Now brace yourself, because this is where the story gets intense. Gene Deal says he was physically present the night the notorious Big was lost, and the warnings he received beforehand don't match the story most people believe. Before anyone even traveled to Los Angeles, Gene says alarms were already going off. He received a call from a man named Worth Hall, known on the street as Unique. This wasn't a random person either. Gene says Unique was deeply connected in the streets and was incarcerated in Colorado at the time. Despite that, Gene says Unique somehow got a message through. The call was short, just 2 words, "Vest up." Then the line went dead. Gene explains that when authorities detect certain calls, they shut them down instantly. Gene followed up immediately. He contacted the woman who connected the call, and she confirmed it really was Unique calling from inside. Not long after, another message came through, warning that trouble was moving in fast. Gene didn't ignore it. He contacted Kirk Burroughs and told him they needed more protection immediately. At that time, Gene says there were only 4 security staff covering Diddy, Biggie, and the entire crew, which he felt was nowhere near enough. But here's the problem. When Gene pushed for more security, Diddy brushed it off completely. He didn't believe the warnings and refused to approve extra protection. Then a second alert came in. Chaz Williams reportedly told Gene the same thing. Danger was closing in fast. Gene says there were multiple reasons tensions were high. Unresolved disputes, heated phone calls, public arguments, and lingering fallout tied to earlier incidents. Gene knew the risk was real. That's when he decided to speak directly to Diddy. He went to Andre Harrell's house, where Diddy was staying at the time. Diddy came down the stairs wearing a white Beverly Hills hotel robe, which Gene joked looked like it walked straight out of the hotel. But the moment quickly turned serious because Gene knew what was coming next mattered more than anything. This is where Gene says everything crossed a line and the tension hit maximum level. He says he looked Sean Diddy Combs dead in the face and tried to warn him straight up. Gene told him he had serious intel that danger was closing in fast and that people were planning to cause real harm to the crew. But Gene says Diddy shut it down instantly. According to him, Diddy snapped back saying he didn't want to hear any of that and brushed the warning off completely. Gene was stunned. He questioned how anyone could ignore something that serious, but Diddy doubled down and told him plainly that if Gene didn't feel comfortable going, he didn't have to come at all. Then it got colder. Diddy stood up, ended the conversation, and walked right out the door, leaving Gene standing there shocked and heated. Later on, Gene says he learned something that made the situation even heavier. He heard from Clark Kent, a well-known DJ and vice president at Motown Records, that Clark had been in the notorious B.I.G.'s room the night before everything went left. According to Gene, Clark asked Biggie what his plans were, and Biggie said the event had already been set up for him by Puff and D-Rock. That's when Gene realized this wasn't random at all. The gathering at the Peterson Automotive Museum was planned ahead of time, not a last-minute move. By this point, Gene says his senses were on full alert. He noticed heavy gang presence everywhere and felt the atmosphere shift fast. He stayed ready, watching every angle, trying to protect everyone the best he could. That's when things escalated. Gene says Diddy told him to get in the vehicle, and Gene pushed back, questioning why someone was trying to tell him how to do his job. According to Gene, Diddy responded with a threat, saying if he didn't get in, he wouldn't be working for Bad Boy anymore. Gene got in the car, but he was furious. He told the driver to move fast and clear the area immediately. As they pulled away, Gene noticed something felt off. Moments later, chaos erupted nearby and panic spread instantly. The driver hit the gas, trying to escape the scene, while Gene shouted in disbelief, questioning why they were moving away instead of helping. Eventually, the vehicle turned back, but by then, everything had already changed. Gene says something that still haunts him. There was a medical facility just blocks away, yet the decision was made to drive much farther instead. He can't wrap his head around that choice to this day. Gene recalls his final words to Biggie clearly. He told everyone to keep him awake and stay alert. Biggie responded calmly, telling them to just do it. Gene believes timing mattered. He says, if quicker decisions had been made, the outcome might have been very different. And to be clear, Gene stresses one thing hard. He does not believe Diddy personally carried out any physical act of violence. But what Gene is saying next is what has people questioning everything they thought they knew. This is the final piece, and this is where Gene Deal draws the hardest line of all. His message is simple but heavy. When you create the conditions for chaos, you don't get to act shocked when chaos shows up. Gene says it's not about who physically did what, it's about who set the stage and then stepped back. Gene claims multiple people raised red flags early. He says he warned Sean Diddy Combs and so did Maze, along with others in the circle. According to Gene, those warnings were ignored completely. No pauses, no course correction, no effort to cool things down. And Gene makes one thing clear. He's not the only one who knows this information. He says there are others who were present, who saw the same things, but he's the only one willing to say it publicly right now. That alone should make people think twice. Gene breaks down what he calls a pattern. Songs were released at the worst possible moments, adding pressure instead of easing it. Peace talks were avoided when they could have changed everything. Travel decisions were made even after serious safety concerns were raised. Gene says when you stack all that together, it paints a picture people don't want to face. He asks a question that cuts deep. If you knowingly allow a dangerous environment to grow and people get seriously hurt as a result, don't you carry some responsibility for that? He's not saying anyone personally acted on violence. He's not claiming money was handed directly to anyone. He's asking whether certain choices pushed events down a path that didn't need to exist. So now the spotlight shifts to 50 Cent. Why leave all of this out of the Netflix documentary? Gene supporters point to three major reasons. First is the legal side. There's an active case connected to Tupac's situation, and including unverified claims could have caused serious legal headaches for both Netflix and 50. Lawyers don't play around with that. Second is credibility. 50 wants this project to be viewed as serious and impactful, not dismissed. Gene is compelling and detailed, but critics label him controversial. Cutting him out may have been a move to keep the documentary airtight against pushback. And then there's the business angle. Gene wanted compensation that matched the value he believed his material brought. 50 is a businessman first, and sometimes tough cuts get made when numbers don't line up. No emotions, just decisions. Adding even more tension, there's talk that Diddy later sent 50 flowers at Club 11 in Miami. And according to insiders, these weren't casual arrangements. They looked more like ceremonial flowers. Whether symbolic or coincidental, it added fuel to already loud speculation. After hearing everything, a lot of people believe Gene Deal. His details are specific, consistent, and rooted in first-hand presence. From prior awareness of danger, to financial questions, to ignored warnings, Gene believes the truth was too risky to air in a mainstream release. That's why he's speaking now. And he's not backing down. Now it's on you. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe Gene Deal? Do you think key information was left out on purpose? Where do you think this story goes next? If you rock with deep dives like this, make sure to like, subscribe to ScarFame, share this video, and keep the conversation going. I'll catch you in the next one.